The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Graham Canty, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
So hello and welcome to another episode of the Star Sport podcast. I'm your host Matthew Hurley. I'm joined today as usual by Star Sport editor Liam MacCarthy. The Star Sport podcast is brought to you in association with our friends at Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, where your bank really does matter. Choose credit union, choose local, choose community. Now, on this week's show, we will be joined by Abbie Salter-Townshend after her Interpro win with the Munster team over the weekend as they beat Leinster 50 points to 15. But first, we'll look at some stories that are taking the headlines in West Cork sport over the last week or so. And I suppose, Kieran, we have to start in one place. That one thing that has happened since we last recorded the podcast from last week. Ben O'Connor is the new Cork hurling manager, replacing Pat Ryan in the job. So it's a 3-year term for Ben O'Connor, the new Townshend man, obviously, who was in charge of the Cork under-20s in 2023 and 2024, as well as coaching Middleton to a county title in 2021. He's joined by selectors Ronan Curran, Terence McCarthy and William Began, and Niall O'Halloran from Ballinhassig is coming in as coach. I suppose, Kieran, with Ben O'Connor coming in, he does have the resume, obviously, being under-20 manager, winning the All-Ireland in 2023, only losing by a point to Tipperary in the under-20 Munster final last year as well. And coincidental that the winning point scorer that time was Darragh McCarthy, the guy who scored a bucket load of points in the All-Ireland final against the Cork seniors. So overall, it is a very good appointment to replace Pat Ryan.
Yeah, and the Cork County Board acted really quick here. When you think that Pat Ryan's announcement came Saturday a week ago, within a couple of days, the County Board had identified Ben O'Connor as the man they wanted to replace Pat Ryan, and then by the Thursday, the County Board had released a statement saying he was going to be ratified at Tuesday night's County Board committee meeting, and so on. So within a couple of days, within maybe 10 or 11 days since Pat Ryan indicated that he wasn't going to proceed in the job, Ben O'Connor was in situ with his management team, everything done. Kind of that was so swift, so fast. So kudos to the County Board for getting that one over the line. So you're right about it. In this Thursday's Southern Star match, who was in the Ben O'Connor era, is starting. You know, Pat Ryan did an absolutely terrific job with these Cork hurlers, and I don't think that could ever be underestimated. Okay, Cork came up short in the last two All-Ireland finals, but I always think the sign of a good job, whether it's sport or whatever kind of whatever you work in, if you can hand the baton over to the next person but have it in a better place when you received it. I think Pat Ryan has done that. He really has. Cork hurlers won a league title for the first time in a good few years. Won the first Munster titles for the first time since 2018. Cork are now genuine All-Ireland contenders. So Ben O'Connor's taken over a team that's within inches, of touching to kind of get their hands back in the Holy Grail. So just going to be very interesting, Matthew, to see what happens from here. Like, even to get your thoughts, Ben O'Connor, he'd want to put his stamp on his team. Like, this is his team now. He's with his management team is. Do you think he'll make a couple of changes to the panel? Do you think the panel needs a few changes, considering how close they are? What do you think he'll try and do just to help Cork take that next step?
What will be interesting in terms of personnel to the panel, I think, in particular, actually goalkeeper could be very, very interesting. Like Patrick Collins, I know we wrote about him in the Star, saying that he has had a very good year up until the All-Ireland final. And to be fair, I still think he's in line for an All-Star. But the context behind it, Brian Saunderson, the sub-goalkeeper for Cork, was part of the Middleton setup, let's just say. And in 2023, he was Ben O'Connor's goalkeeper at under-20 level. A lot of people think Brian Saunderson is probably the right man to go into goal. So it will be interesting to see who Ben O'Connor goes with. Maybe he'll try them out both in the league. That's probably the thing that they'll go with as well. The full back line, like Sean O'Donoghue, I don't think you can take him out. No, Leary probably not either. A lot of people saying Owen Downey might not be up to just because of the All-Ireland final performance. Maybe Ben will give him a chance. Let's not forget, Ben O'Connor was manager when Owen Downey was in the under-20 team in 2023. And coincidentally, Owen Downey actually played midfield that day against Offaly in the final. So it'll be interesting to see where Ben O'Connor actually plays Owen Downey. Like I know Rob is centre-back, Rob Downey. The midfield is pretty set in stone in Tim O'Mahony and Darford Skibbon. But will he move on Downey around the middle of the park? It remains to be seen there as well. And of course, the forward line, Ben Cunningham was Cork's main free taker in under 20 level in 2023. Does that mean Patrick Horgan will have to take a seat on the bench? Who's to know? Like, it's going to be very interesting to see that as well. Obviously, Patrick Horgan would have played a bit on the playing field with Ben O'Connor. Ben O'Connor towards the end of his career, obviously, and Hoggy towards the start of it. So it will be interesting to see what angle Ben kind of goes down in terms of the forwards there. You would imagine Brian Hayes will keep his place in the team, possibly Alan Conley as well, probably Shane Barrett. And as well as that, Dermot Healy was in the under-20 team as well in 2023, scored a goal in that final against Offaly, so you'd imagine he'll still keep his starting place in the team. So, to be honest, I don't think he probably changed too much. It might be subtle changes, and it might be a change in mentality. But other than that, I don't think there'll be much of a change in personnel. Like, Ben is a very good manager. He's well thought of in Cork hurling circles, so I think he will be a very good manager for Cork hurling. But the key thing for Cork fans, I think, is the main thing is patience, because a lot of people might be predicting Cork will win the All-Ireland straight off the bat, first year in charge for Ben O'Connor. And the fact that the hurling championship is kind of open season right now. Limerick, you don't know what Limerick will turn up next season, considering them losing to Dublin this year in the championship. Kilkenny are on a barren spell themselves. Clare, when will they get back up on the horse? Tipperary notoriously don't do two in a row. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see the hurling landscape next year. But the key thing from the Cork public's point of view is probably patience in terms of Ben O'Connor in this job. It's a 3-year term. It is a project, and hopefully he will get over the line and get the Liam MacCarthy for Cork for the first time in over 20 years. But we'll have to see what happens next season. It will be a very interesting appointment in more ways than one. Also, the Cork County Board announced that in the under-20 footballers, Ray Keane is taking charge of that team with an interesting backroom team. Paul Kerrigan in as coach or selector from Nemo Rangers. Obviously, Paul won an All-Ireland as a player in 2010. In senior level, Kevin O'Sullivan from Killamatra and Enda Kieran from Ahabullogue and MTU is also in the management team. I suppose, Kieran, Ray Keane, he was born in Kerry, just putting that out there, obviously, the elephant in the room there. But at the same time, he did manage Ahabullogue to a Premier Intermediate final last year, where they were very close to beating Kilshannig. Obviously, the game went to a replay. He did manage St. Finbarrs to a Premier Senior title in 2018 as well. So he knows Cork football inside and out at club level. It's a quite interesting appointment. But all in all, considering his achievements at club level, you would have to say, would you say that's the right appointment for the under-20s?
I suppose it's probably no surprise to see a Kerry man doing good things in the world of Cork sport. But we have been known to come across the county bounds and make our presence felt in this wonderful world of Cork. But no, it's a really interesting appointment. And what I like about this, Matthew, is Paul Kerrigan they've been down as a coach slash selector, and I like this. I think here in Cork, just to get a lot of those kind of former footballers involved, and someone like Paul Kerrigan, he's been there, he's done that obviously with Cork, won the All-Ireland back to 2010. But look at his experience at club level as well. With Nemo Rangers, like he's an incredible haul of medals with Nemo. So he's a very, very smart footballer, and he's a great eye for the game. So I do really like that, and I'd love to see kind of more of that in a sense, isn't it? You're getting those former Cork footballers back involved and having them come through as a whether it's a coach, selector, or whatever you want to call it. So I think that's quite exciting. So I think it's a good appointment. I really do. I'm excited to see what the Cork Under-20s are going to look like next year. And we had so many different appointments during the week, kind of even John Cleary's management team was confirmed. Obviously John Cleary, the Castlehaven man, he's back in a 2-year football term. And I suppose the kind of standout one there, Matthew, was Kevin Murray is coming board as a coach slash selector, and he's down as a bars man in the press release. And Kevin played for Donny's back in the day as well, so it's kind of it's a slight tweak to John Cleary's management team. James Lockery's stepped away as a selector, but some of the familiar faces are there, like Micheál Croneen, Barry Corcoran, Jim O'Donoghue. So having Kevin Murray come on board, I think would be quite a shrewd appointment. So I'm liking what I've seen in the last couple of weeks in terms of how fast the county board have acted with getting Ben O'Connor on board. The fact that the Cork seniors have got the likes of Kevin Murray on board. We're looking at Ray Keane in the Cork under 20s with Paul Kerrigan as a like I said, a coach selector. So I think it's quite positive, kind of. But it's one thing being quite positive now at the start of September. What really matters is the mood when the football kicks in next year. Like we want to see the Cork hurlers kick on and just get closer to the Holy Grail, like you said. We need to see the Cork senior footballers step on, and that's very, very obvious. John Clear has obviously been in the hot seat for a good few years now, but progression is a must next year. Really have to see. We've seen kind of intermittent signs over the last couple of seasons, but we really need to see that kind of consistent progress next year, because I think for like John Clear wanted himself, but just so will the fans and this group of players. They'll really want to kind of kick on, and I know we're going to talk about it a lot over the winter going into next year. And then with the Cork under 20s, kind of exciting again, exciting time for these young fellas coming into a fresh new setup. Ray Keane as manager, good management team there. But again, it's going to come down to results. It's going to come down to results. So, but I think, kind of quite optimistic in September, but that needs to transfer into next year, Matthew.
Exactly. So we'll see how the Cork inter-county teams perform next season. But the club season is up and running right now, and we'll have to see how that all progresses. Speaking of the club season, there was no adult action and no senior intermediate, all them, other than the Muskerry hurlers losing to Emo Kelly. That was the only game at the weekend. But there were under 21 finals last weekend. Obviously, the main one was the under 21A final in Carbery, and that finished Ibane Gaels beating Bantry Blues on a scoreline of 314 to 114 in Dunmanway. Kieran, you were at this game. Brilliant win for Ibane. Absolutely brilliant in terms of the performances, particularly from the likes of Odin O'Donovan and Luke Murphy, like they have done throughout the whole championship in many ways. But Bantry Blues aiming for back-to-back titles. It was disappointment for them, but brilliant win for Ibane.
Yeah, great win for Ibane. They were 5 points down at half-time, and to be honest, Bantry had bossed that second quarter. They rattled off 5 points in a row, and it did look like they were getting on top. And then right in the very first attack in the second half, Dara Kingston got through, sent a kind of a lower shot across the goal, but it kind of hit the corner of the post and rolled away. That was only 12 seconds into the second half. If that had gone in, suddenly Bantry were 8 points up. Okay, they did come back and tag on 2 quick points, and they did lead by 7. But Ibane were terrific in that second half. They got the momentum. They made a couple of really good substitutions at halftime. They brought on the likes of Donagh Flynn, who was a Cork minor footballer this year. Just gave them that bit of impetus. They started doing well in midfield, getting breaking ball. And then with someone like Luke Murphy, he finished with 3-3, but he got a second half hat-trick. Kind of he deservedly won man of the match. And all of his goals came at crucial times. His first goal came when Ibane were 7 points down. His second goal came, and it actually put Ibane ahead for the first time since early in the game. And then his last goal came in injury time. That just confirmed the win. So a really deserving win for Ibane Gaels. And it meant an awful lot to this group, because they lost their manager, Donald Holland, in July. Donald was on the sideline when this championship kicked off back in February, when Ibane beat Clonakilty. Incidentally, Luke Murphy also got a hat trick that day, but Donald sadly passed away during the summer. So he was very much in everyone's thoughts in the Ibane camp on Friday night in Dunmanway. And as Danny Murphy told me after, like there was very much an element of doing it for Donald Holland. So great win for Ibane. Lovely speech after by the captain, Tommaso Bucla. Some really good performances. But a word too for Bantry, because they went down fighting. They really did. Like they've been terrific champions. Like, and they've had a great story. Under 21B champions in 2023, came straight up to A, won the under 21A for the first time in 12 years. Got straight back into the final this year, and they were going well up to half time. But it was kind of noticeable after, like the Darashidi, like they're probably their main man, or who is their main man. He was hobbling a small bit, but it turns out he carried an ankle lock into the game, and you could see it in the second half, Matthew, where he was just in and around the full forward line. He wasn't coming out to get the ball, like and then Jack Sheedy as well. he was suffering with cramp in the second half, and he'd done really well in the first half. He got 4 points, he finished with 5. So Bantry were kind of without two of their main men at full tilt coming down the stretch, and that kind of told, because in the Ibane camp, you had the likes of Owen Donovan got 9 points, 8 from place balls, including 3 2-pointer frees in the second half, and then Luke Murphy. So a really deserving win for Ibane.
Absolutely brilliant from Ibane Gaels, and congratulations to everybody involved there. What a win for the Tibble League and Barry Row amalgamation there. In the B final, St. Colum's beat Ibane Gaels 2-9 to 7 points. And then in the C final as well, Ilen Rovers beat Clonagale 2-9 to 2-8. I suppose, Kieran, it's good for them two clubs, because Ilen in particular, they are moving well in the adult grade, obviously in the intermediate A championship, winning one game and drawing the other as well. And the fact they've won an underage title, I know it's at C level, but it's still very, very progressive in terms of where Ilen want to be. And St. Colum's break along over 30 years, I think, in terms of the last time they won a Carbery title. So brilliant for both of them clubs to get their day in the sun.
Exactly, yeah. If we're looking at Ilen Rovers for a second, so that was under 21C, that was 13 aside, and this is almost a kind of, I suppose, a smash and grab win for Ilen, because Clonagale were going really well, but Ilen just came, they timed their comeback so well at the end, and they got their hands on the silverware. And why this is important for Ilen, and you touched on it there, Matthew, is in their intermediate team is starting to get a few results after a few very challenging years. And even at under 21 level, Ilen had actually amalgamated with Kilmacabea for the last couple of years under the Kil-Island banner. So this was the first year in a couple of seasons where Ilen Rovers actually fielded their own under 21 team. So to get that title, I think it'll mean an awful lot to everyone involved. But it's just good for the club, you know. Anytime you win a bit of silverware, it just gives everyone a lift. And the exact same for St. Colum's. St. Colum's have won the under 21B Carbery title for the first time since 1995. So that's 30 years. And they kind of credit that team back in 95 as being the kind of sparking a run that took the club up to Junior A and kind of won a Junior B county and contesting Junior A finals for a couple of years. So St. Colum's will be hoping for something similar here, that a lot of these young players can just kind of help drive on their adult team. And just kind of interestingly, the man of the match for St. Colum's on Saturday was Robert Cronin from the famous Cronin Motorsport dynasty. His older brother's Keith Cronin, a 4-time British Rally Championship title winner. He's also the reigning Irish Tarmac champion. Daniel drives, as does Robert's younger brother Colin. So we're used to seeing Robert on the Star Sport pages in terms of his feats in motorsport, but now he's man of the match in a Carbery U21B football final. So he's very much the dual star with a difference. But like you said earlier as well, Matthew, just congrats to all three clubs.
Absolutely brilliant win for all three clubs there, and hopefully they can do well in the county series in the under 21 grade as well. We'll take a quick break now, and after the break we'll be talking about Abbie Salter-Townshend's win in the Interpro series.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So welcome back to the podcast, and in a while we'll be joined by Abbie Salter-Townsend after herself and the Munster team collected the Interpro title, beating Leinster on a score of 50 points to 15. And what was impressive about Munster's win in many ways, Kieran, was they had 4 games. They won every single one of them. They beat Connacht, they beat Ulster, they beat Leinster twice as well. And for Abbie, this was a breakout year, obviously, starting her first Munster game in this series against Connacht on the first day out. She didn't start the final against Leinster, but she came on the 58th minute of this final to finish out the victory in many ways. But to start 3 out of 4 games in a clean sweep campaign, it's brilliant, and it's progressive for Abbie in her career.
100%. Abbie's stories were one of kind of the lovely stories to follow over the last couple of years. She was part of the Skibbereen Rugby Club women's team that they won 3 titles in a dream season a couple of years back, and then Abbie's obviously been involved at Munster for the last couple of years, and we'll hear from her quite soon in your chat with her, Matthew, that I suppose some of those seasons were kind of frustrating for her. You know, kind of she was thereabouts, but wasn't getting the starts. But this year she did get the starts. So to start in 3 of the 4 Interpros game, to come on in the final, an emphatic win against Leinster, it just means an awful lot to Abbie. And it's just good for West Cork rugby. Again, like this is at the moment, like across the water, we've Inja Breen doing what she does at the Women's Rugby World Cup with Ireland, and a huge game coming up against New Zealand on Sunday there. Incidentally, both Inya and Abbie are from Castletownshend, so maybe there's something in the water in Castletownshend that can help produce these top class rugby players. But whether it's Inya on the World Cup stage with Ireland, or Abbie Salter-Townshend on the Interpro stage with Munster, it's just good news for West Cork rugby, and especially for girls rugby here in the region. We've had the likes of the Gavin Coombs and Fineen Wycherley, Jack Crowley, John Hodnett, all these local men do great things for Munster, and a few of them go on to play for Ireland, of course. But to see local women doing it on the big stage as well, I think it's just very important for young girls out there who are starting off in their rugby journeys to look around and to see an Abbie Salter-Townshend or to see an Ibane, and to think they're from here too, and look at the stages that they're playing on. So it can be very inspirational in that sense.
Exactly so, and let's hear from Abbie right now. So did I be joined on the Star Sport podcast this week by Abbie Salter-Townshend after Munster won the Interpro series over Leinster at the weekend. I suppose, Abbie, it was a brilliant victory for Munster overall to cap off a great few weeks for Munster rugby and yourself, obviously. Talk to me how you felt on Saturday after the win.
I mean, what a day! Like, not only to go up and beat Leinster, but like to beat them in the way that we did. We really kind of turned up on the day, and I feel like over the last kind of 4 weeks, obviously we've had some tough days. Like, delighted to get 4 out of 4, but we kind of said it ourselves. We hadn't put together an 80-minute performance, and I think we kind of everything clicked on Saturday, and we managed to do that.
I suppose for yourself, like, you've been in the Munster panel for so many years now, got your first start early on the Interpro series this year against Connacht. How satisfying was that on a personal point of view?
It was unreal. I've always said my goal was to start for Munster and get that number 9 jersey, and to get 3 starts out of 4 in this series was just incredible. Like, it's all I've ever dreamed of. So yeah, it doesn't get much better than that. Just
from your point of view as well, is it important to be patient and kind of to wait for your chance? Because you did, obviously, for your chance against Connacht, and it kept knocking on the door, and when it opened, you took your chance. So how important is it to have that patience?
It's really important. Me personally, I've had a tough few years in the squad. It's my 4th season with Munster. And I've kind of had a bit of a roller coaster. My first season in, I didn't get any caps. Then I was on the bench for 3 games the following year. I only played 1 game last year. So definitely being patient and waiting for my chance, and then to be able to take it this year is just incredible.
Obviously for yourself as well, you've come from a long way since your days with a Skibbereen rugby club, and obviously those days would have been very, very important to you. How vital were those kind of starting years for yourself?
They were really important, like just kind of building my knowledge of the game and playing with Skib, and to kind of leave after we had such a successful year where we won the treble. And yeah, it was just really important to kind of make the connections I did when I was in Skib, and then when I moved up to UL to start college and then ended up playing with Bows, like it was the right progression for me, and I wouldn't have been where I am now without my few years at Skib.
And we're seeing more and more West Cork players, obviously, in women and in men as well, obviously, with Munster squads. Do you think the pathway has kind of been established as of now? Because you see yourself, you see Anya Breen in the Rugby World Cup with Ireland at the moment. Do you think the pathway is there at the moment?
Yeah, it's definitely come a long way from when I started. When I started playing rugby, there was no kind of Irish underage pathway for women, and even bringing the WNTS, the National Talent Squad, for those girls to be able to be in like almost a professional setup from the ages of 16, 17, and now having like the under 18 sevens and the under 18 Interpros and even the 17s, they have a development squad. There's so many more opportunities for girls that just weren't around when I started when I was 15. So it's unreal to see. And like the talent is coming through. We had a load of the development girls in with us training for the Interpro season. So there was I think there was 15 girls in the development squad who'd come through the underage, and even girls who I coached when they were under 16, under 17 to take the training pitch with them. It must have been incredible.
And we talked about West Cork rugby there with obviously yourself winning the Interpro series and Ibane being at the Rugby World Cup. In terms of how beneficial it will be for the area, in terms of younger players coming up and look at their idols, like you'd be one of their idols, obviously, Enya would be another one as well. Like, it's absolutely brilliant for the younger generation in many ways in West Cork.
Yeah, it's great. Like, when I started playing rugby, I didn't know any female players. I was looking up to the men's Munster team. From growing up watching rugby, like Peter Stringer was a massive idol of mine, to now it's lovely to hear that could be an idol to some of these younger girls. And like, I do a bit of coaching at Munster and stuff. I was at the Bandon School of Excellence camp in Bandon a couple of weeks ago, and just to coach girls from between 13 and 17 who are talking about watching our games and coming to our games and looking up to us. It's such a nice feeling to be that person that I didn't have when I started.
For yourself as well, that's 2 trophies in 1 year. Obviously the Interpro series, obviously the All-Ireland League Senior Cup win in April as well for UL Bohs. Could you have imagined a year that you had in 2025?
No, I don't think so. I mean, obviously our plan with the start of the season with Bohs was to go out and win the IL and go back to back, and to have achieved that in the way that we did. And the game in the final in Aviva was incredible, to win it at the death. We then knew a lot of us play for Bohs who are on the Munster squad, so we knew then pushing on to the Interpros was important, that we go and stop Leinster from getting the three-peat that they've been talking about for the last 2 years.
You talked about the UL Bohs players involved in the Munster there. I counted from the squad that was against Leinster in the Interpro final, I counted 14 players, including yourself, that were on the UL Bohs team and on the Munster team as well. That camaraderie has to be great for UL Bohs players being part of this Munster setup too.
Yeah, it definitely makes a big difference, being able to be comfortable with the girls that you play with all year round, to continue playing with them in the summer. Obviously, there's plenty of other girls who are in the Munster squad who come from different clubs. We've got some from Colum, and then you've the girls coming down who are playing with Dublin clubs and been playing with them for a few years. So we do know each other fairly well, but it does make a massive difference. It's a big help having the Bohs girls around, knowing how we play, knowing how we react to things. And yeah, it just definitely makes it easier.
Talked about the three-peat there. Leinster wanted to do a three-peat this year. To win it, not just to knock Leinster off their peril in more ways than one, but as well as that, to win every single one of the games, to beat Leinster twice, to beat Connacht and to beat Ulster. Could you have won the Interpro series in a better way in many ways?
No, there's no way. There's no better way of winning it than to go 4 from 4. I feel like there would have been a bit of disappointment if we'd lost one of the games and still ended up winning the final. But it's definitely the way to do it. And especially over the last the 2 years previous, where we'd won 3 games and then lost the final to Leinster, that's heartbreaking in itself. So it really makes up for it this year that we managed to go and do it.
I suppose you've had a brilliant year on a personal level. Obviously, Munster had a brilliant year this year, so did UL Bohs. In terms of the future, I know you probably don't want to talk about the future now because you've had an amazing year already. But what are your general hopes for the future of a rugby career for yourself?
I'd just like to stay in and around the Munster squad. I think everyone kind of dreams of playing for Ireland, but I don't see that as being one of my main dreams. I'm happy where I am. I feel like I've achieved everything that I've wanted to, that's tangible, and I'd love to stay in and around and keep that number 9 jersey on.
Brilliant. I'm sure you've had a brilliant year, Abbie. Congrats on your Munster win. Thanks for coming on to the podcast. And yeah, brilliant win. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you so much.
The Star Sport podcast is brought to you by Access Credit Union. Access Credit Union, funding dreams for over 50 years.
So it is that time of the week again where we look at what's in this Thursday's Southern Star Sports section. So what should our readers expect this week, Kieran?
I'm going to say it, Matthew. I think this is one of the finest West Cork, finest Southern Stars that we've produced in a while. It is absolutely action-packed. So we mentioned the Carbery U21 finals there. So we've 6 pages on those. So fans of Ibane Gaels, St. Colum's and Ilen Rovers, you know what to do on Thursday morning. Go out and get your Southern Star. Also, it's going to be a big weekend of hurling, both in the county championship and the Carbery hurling scene. So, Matthew, you're previewing the games and giving us the permutations. So, like you said, you need your calculators at the ready and your social media at the ready, because an awful lot's going to happen over Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as we move towards the knockout stages in the various hurling championships. Also, the Cork Ladies Football Championships and the County Camogie Championships are moving at pace as well. So Carbery have a very big game against Avondhu in the divisional final at Castle Road on Sunday. And I was talking to Teddy O'Regan about that. Of course, the Rovers have a huge game coming up this weekend as well to try and stay alive in that championship. And we also have an interview with Saoirse MacCarthy, the Cork Camogie star. But I was chatting to Saoirse. It's a bit of a difference, Matthew. MTU GA Club are having their 50 celebrations coming up later this month. So I'm chatting to Saoirse just about her MTU memories and winning the Purcell Cup with the college. And also we're touching on, I suppose, her disappointment with losing the All-Ireland and lessons learned from that. So it's almost a contrast as in the high, the Purcell win, and the kind of coming back from the disappointment of losing an All-Ireland. So that's a quite interesting read. Also, the West Cork League Premier Division season kicks off this weekend. Clonakilty Soccer Club are the team to beat. Who's going to knock them off their perch? Well, you'll have to see Thursday Southern Star to find out more about the 8 teams and they're running for the title. I have a lovely piece with Pat Curran. He's the basketball coach from Bantry. So we're chatting about his own coaching journey. He's done terrific work for Bantry basketball, especially with his school, Colum Public Bantry. So if anyone deserves the Colum inches this week, it's definitely Pat Curran. So that's well worth checking out. There's loads in there, Matthew. There really is. And just another one I just want to point out is we have a piece about Colin Green and his daughter Keelan, who are members of Baltimore Sailing Club, and they were a part of the Rolex Fastnet race there in the last couple of weeks. So they're actually bringing us on board the boat to kind of show us what life is like in a boat during the Fastnet race. And they are just some of the highlights. It's a cracking Southern Star. So please go out and support local journalism, because you're giving us the opportunity to keep doing what we're doing, which is spreading the great word about West Cork sport.
Exactly so. And as usual, if you are further afield or can't make it to the shops, you could subscribe to the Southern Star e-paper and get the Southern Star on your laptop, tablet or phone. Just go to www.southernstar.ie/subscribe, enter your details, and you get an exact replica of the newspaper for less than €2 per week. As always, thanks for listening to the Star Sport podcast, and thanks again to our sponsors at Access Credit Union. If you've enjoyed this, please remember to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll be back again next week. Until then, take care.